Ice Gladiators, setting the stage for intense hockey battles, introduces the concept of hockey players as modern-day gladiators, engaging in fierce battles on the ice. This comparison highlights the physicality, skill, and drama inherent in hockey, where players not only strive to outscore their opponents, but also often engage in intense physical confrontations. In this metaphorical arena, the ice rink becomes a stage where athletes showcase their strength, strategy, and resilience, much like gladiators in ancient times. The significance of this point lies in its ability to capture the raw, visceral nature of hockey, drawing in audiences who are enthralled by the sport's dramatic and combative elements. One example of this is the Battle of Quebec, epitomized by the fierce rivalry between the Montreal Canadiens and the Quebec Nordiques during the 1980s and early 1990s. Their matchups often escalated into brawls, demonstrating the intense passion and commitment of the players. Another example is the Boston Bruins versus Montreal Canadiens rivalry, one of the longest and most storied in NHL history, marked by memorable games that often featured both skillful play and physical altercations. These rivalries exemplify the gladiatorial spirit, as they are remembered not just for the scores, but for the intensity and emotional investment displayed by all involved. Supporters of this idea argue that such intense battles enhance the entertainment value of hockey, providing fans with thrilling spectacles and memorable moments. The physical aspect of the game, coupled with the drama of rivalries, is seen by many as an integral component of hockey's appeal, keeping spectators engaged and invested. However, this perspective is not without controversy. Critics argue that glorifying the gladiatorial aspect of hockey may encourage unnecessary violence, potentially leading to injuries and tarnishing the sport's image. There are discussions about the impact of fighting on player safety and whether the NHL should enforce stricter penalties to curb such incidents. Additionally, some purists contend that an overemphasis on physicality detracts from the game's skill and finesse. This concept connects to other aspects of hockey by influencing team dynamics, strategies, and even fan culture. The gladiatorial nature shapes how teams build rosters, opting for players who can withstand and excel in high-intensity situations. It also fosters community identity, as fans rally around their teams, often embracing the warrior mentality and support. Overall, Ice Gladiators serves as a lens through which to view hockey's complex and multifaceted nature, balancing the tension between physicality and artistry on the ice. The origins of hockey fights blend tradition and culture, shaping the sport into the exhilarating spectacle it is today. In essence, hockey fights, or ice gladiators, refer to the sanctioned or tolerated physical altercations that occur during a game, often as a means of self-policing among players. These fights are deeply rooted in the sport's history, embodying both camaraderie and a sense of honor, where players protect their teammates and establish dominance on the ice. The significance of hockey fights in the broader context of ice gladiators lies in their role as a defining feature of the game, setting it apart from other team sports. Fights in hockey serve not only as a release of tensions, but also as a means to maintain the balance of physical play, ensuring that players adhere to an unwritten code of respect and sportsmanship. Several real-world instances illustrate this concept vividly. Take, for example, the legendary rivalry between the Boston Bruins and Montreal Canadiens in the 1970s. These games were notorious for their intensity, with fights often breaking out as part of the intense competition. This rivalry showcases how fights were integral to asserting team toughness and establishing psychological edges. Another example is the infamous Broad Street Bullies, the Philadelphia Flyers of the 1970s, who used fighting as a strategic element to intimidate opponents and gain a competitive advantage, ultimately leading them to multiple Stanley Cup victories. While some argue that fights are a necessary part of the sport, providing entertainment and keeping players accountable, others raise concerns about player safety and the potential glorification of violence. Critics suggest that the risk of injury, including concussions, makes fighting an outdated practice that should be eliminated in favor of skill-based gameplay. The NHL has responded by introducing stricter penalties and protocols, yet the debate persists. This discussion also links to other aspects of the Ice Gladiators theme by highlighting the evolution of hockey, where fighting has influenced player roles, team dynamics, and even the rules of the game. Enforcers, once a staple of every team, are less common now, reflecting changes in how the sport is played and perceived. Understanding the origins and cultural significance of hockey fights offers valuable insight into the sport's transformation, illustrating the ongoing tension between tradition and the modern emphasis on player safety and skill. Ice Gladiators, the most daring fights in hockey history. delves into the legendary brawls that have punctuated the evolution of hockey, making the sport as much about raw emotion as about skillful play. Iconic fights that shaped hockey history refers to those memorable and influential confrontations on the ice, in some cases, historical pivot points, that have defined the culture and dynamics of hockey. These scuffles go beyond mere moments of aggression. They embody the passion, intensity, and sometimes the resentment that fuels the game, reinforcing the image of players as modern-day gladiators. The significance of these iconic fights is manifold. They have been instrumental in defining the narrative of hockey as a sport where courage and physicality are as celebrated as technical proficiency. These brawls often put the spotlight on rivalries, intensifying the spectator experience and driving fan engagement. Moreover, they serve as rituals of team bonding and assert dominance when handled within the sport's unwritten codes of conduct. Consider the infamous Battle of the Broad Street Bullies versus the Soviet Red Army in 1976, where the Philadelphia Flyers' aggressive style of play against the Soviet team underscored Western fierceness and altered how international hockey games were perceived. Another example is the brawl between the Montreal Canadiens and the Quebec Nordiques in the 1984 Good Friday Massacre. This encounter, marked by its sheer chaos and intensity, highlighted regional animosities and contributed to the cultural lore of the sport. Both instances illustrate how iconic fights can transcend the game itself, shaping broader cultural and historical perceptions. Opinions on these events are varied. Proponents argue that such fights add an element of unpredictability and excitement, enhancing the sport's entertainment value. Critics, however, contend that glorifying violence overshadows the skillful aspects of hockey, encouraging dangerous conduct and setting a poor example for younger fans. Increased awareness of player safety and head injuries has further intensified these debates. The role of fighting in hockey has evolved, influencing rule changes and sparking dialogues about player safety. It challenges the league to balance tradition with modern sensibilities around violence in sports. These iconic fights are interwoven with the sport's identity, influencing rivalries, fan loyalty, and even rules of engagement, offering a complex but captivating layer to the narrative of hockey's daring history. Techniques and strategies in hockey fights are integral elements in the sport, often seen as a gritty and rough aspect of ice hockey that serves multiple purposes. Hockey fights are not just spontaneous flares of aggression. They are often tactical maneuvers employed by players and teams to protect teammates, shift momentum, or respond to perceived slights. The art of hockey fighting involves various techniques such as grabbing an opponent's jersey for control, maintaining balance on skates, and effectively delivering punches. Strategies include knowing when to engage in a fight, such as after a rough hit on a key teammate, or during a lull when a spark is needed to energize the team and its fans. The significance of these techniques and strategies lies in their psychological and strategic impact on the game. Fights can disrupt the opposing team's rhythm or intimidate players, providing a mental edge. Moreover, they can rally a team or galvanize a lagging crowd, impacting the overall atmosphere and energy in the arena. Legendary enforcers like Bob Probert and Ty Domi were renowned for not only their fighting prowess, but also their ability to use these encounters to influence game outcomes. One notable example is the Battle of Alberta between the Calgary Flames and Edmonton Oilers, where fights have shifted momentum and added intensity to this storied rivalry. Another is the 1970s Philadelphia Flyers, known as the Broad Street Bullies, who used aggressive play and fighting to strategically dominate games and win 2 Stanley Cups. Opinions about hockey fights vary. Supporters argue that fighting is a necessary aspect of the sport, serving as a mechanism for players to police the game and deter dangerous play. Critics, however, contend that it promotes violence and poses significant injury risks, calling for stricter enforcement of penalties against fighting. Challenges and controversies surrounding the role of fighting in hockey include ongoing debates about player safety, especially concerning concussions and long-term health impacts. The NHL has faced pressure to limit or eliminate fighting, leading to rule changes over the years, though many fans and players still see it as an essential tradition. The techniques and strategies of hockey fights connect deeply to the broader culture of the sport, encapsulating its raw physicality and competitive spirit. As part of the spectacle that is ice gladiators, these elements highlight the daring and resilient nature of hockey's most intense confrontations, influencing not just individual games, but the storied narratives that define hockey history.